I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk. Gotta keep quiet, maneuver in silence to let them in chalk up.
Hello and welcome to JK+1. I am not your host, PTF. Where's PTF at? He like stole, I think he stole something from somebody at Jeff Ruby's. I got a random text message the morning after. There's a Thursday night, Friday morning, I got a text message from someone that we met at Jeff Ruby's who said that, you know, there's a bottle of something that has my son's name on it. Can you please help me find it? And I didn't take it, so it had to be Pete. So I'm sure it was Pete who, I'm just kidding. I don't think he took it. I think that guy just lost it. I am your host, Jonathan Kinchin, and I am back from Louisville. It was wild. Oddly enough, I went to Louisville to work on Wednesday and Thursday. We had those two seminars. I was on America's Day at the races. And then I left Friday morning to go to my son's flag football game in Austin, who I was coaching. So I left Friday. He was sick, so we didn't even play the game. I ended up flying back on Saturday to New York. I watched the Derby in the airport. It was wild. It was wild. So, but we're back now, and the Preakness is around the corner. But before we get to the Derby and the Derby winner and the Derby winner's owner, I want to talk a little bit about our friends at Qatar Racing, who had an outstanding weekend. We've got Ever So Mischievous that won the kind of the walkout race, the get out race on Derby Day. A horse that we were excited about first time out. They got beat, comes back and wins. We've got Caravel, who is without a doubt the best turf sprinter in the U.S. And I think pretty soon we'll find out if you can tag in the best turf sprinter in the world. And the filly that I had nothing to do with this, by the way, because everyone knows that listen to this podcast how close I am with Jake Ballas, Matt Miller of Black Type Thoroughbreds, and my relationship with Qatar Racing as it pertains to this podcast. They got a horse together in partnership. I think it's You Almost Had Me that for Brad Cox that won the stake on Thursday at Churchill Downs. So a heck of a weekend for Qatar Racing, and always want to thank them for their support. This week, I got my friend Ramiro Restrepo. He's going to be on a lot of things. He's going to talk about a lot of stuff. I can promise you that this interview will be different because we're friends. So I'm not asking him a lot of the generics. We've spent lots of time together, so there's no reason to be too formal. So a lot of fun stories here from Ramiro, and in about 10 seconds, I'm going to start singing a song, but don't worry about it. I'll explain it a little bit later. I like it like that. I like it like that.
Like that. I hope you put that as the intro. You got hip hop before, but I want to hear that one for this one.
Oh my God, Ramiro. Well, first of all, man, like I texted you leading up to the race, and look, I saw you with the Miami jacket on, standing on the rail in the morning, and I just, I saw you, in interviews and stuff, and I just texted you, man, hey, enjoy the ride. And that was me texting you, I don't think Mage could win, enjoy the ride, because
100%.
It's cool that you got here, and you might as well damn enjoy it, man, because it's a cool thing. But you went ahead and reverse dunked on me and got your picture taken too.
Sometimes you got a Dominique Wilkins tomahawk it right on their heads.
How was the ride? How's the ride been?
Man, Jonathan, I've heard you speak about your father and how emotional that is, and the connection that horse racing has to familial ties touches us all, man. And whenever you end up having any kind of success, and the backbone of it is family, whether you have success as a horse owner, bloodstock agent, in your case, as a horse player and as an analyst with your success, and that the seed, that the root of it is family, bro. It touches you in a place in your soul, man, that it's hard not to get emotional because you know where it comes from with that family not being here any longer, and you know how that is. For ourselves, my maternal grandfather, he was Hulk Hogan. For us, he brought over a family of his wife and 7 kids, my mother being the youngest of the 7, and from the rip, knowing that they had to reset their lives because brothers, 1960, late 1960s isn't 2023. The world is completely changed. You coming over 1960 without speaking English, you're lucky if you're given any opportunity. So they went from being breeders, owners, trainers, jockeys to having to muck stalls, grooming, hot walking, building their way up to foreman, to trainer, uh, and even owning a couple horses. So seeing that firsthand dedication, um, so many people that we know, because obviously, bro, we know so many families in the game, right? Successful families that have had that come from money, that have a successful generations of success, and much respect to them, props and everything. But while I can't say that in this country, especially the last 3 generations that have had any success, but what they have had is like the dedication, the time, you know, living at the track, living in the barns, living in tack rooms, devoting themselves to the horse, bro. Going by the creed, I was born at the track, I'm gonna die at the track. You know what I mean? So to have been able to fulfill a dream, because it really was a genie in a bottle dream for them, to one that I heard since I was a kid, that I wish we could have a starter in the Derby. The goal, one day we're gonna have a horse in the Derby, and that one day never came. Never came for my grandfather. He passed away, and for my 2 uncles who are in their late 70s and early 80s, never came. So for me to be the one, and it's something that happens in racing. You see a lot of these families that in the end, the great grandson or the grandson doesn't keep it going, and that lineage and that involvement in thoroughbred racing dies out, and they sell off the stock and they sell off the farm, and it's a wrap. In our little world, I'm the last of the Mohicans, bro. I'm Daniel Day-Lewis. Like, that's it. It ends with me. And to have them come to the Derby, to have my mother come to the Derby, to have my uncles at that age do that walk, and then win this motherfucker. Shit, man. Come on, man. What do you think? It's crazy.
I tell you what, my favorite part of the AVR video they did was awesome, and they do a great job with those, and what a great what a great lightning in a bottle moment to pick you to cover. But my favorite part of it is in knowing you and being friends with you. My favorite part of it was obviously when you were rooting, but I've seen that a million times. I've also seen the root end with a program being thrown, curse words, and a long walk, right? I know how that video could have ended, but it ended with you repeatedly saying "ganamos."
Yeah.
And that grabbed me by my throat because, obviously it's you could have said you could have said we won, but that's not the native language of your family.
And I don't even know why I said it. I don't know why I said anything. I just, like, I don't know. I've seen some funny comments as to what I was saying. I started out calling Mage Pops. I started then calling him Papa. Then I switched to Come On Javi, and going back and forth in the languages. I call him Pops in English, Papa in Spanish. Then I went Come On Javi in English. And then for some reason, when I turned to my family, my brain switched leads to Spanish. And then I didn't know what else to say. It was like I got to speak to Jim Valvano's brother on his station on ESPN, his radio station yesterday. And brother, you know, how many times have we seen the clip of GBV? You know, running for that hug after upsetting Phi Slamma Jamma. You know, so I turned around and I had my huggies already with me, but I felt that Jimmy V moment, like just like, holy shit, you know, because you lose it, bro. You lose it. You really lose it. Like, you go back and you know Nick Zito losing it when he won with Strike the Gold. He's like thanking America and he loves everybody. He's going bananas. And Carl Nasker with Francis Genter, you know, you did it. You know, you won the Derby. He kisses her, and everybody's. You lose it, bro. You lose it. Like there's, it's an out of body experience. It's indescribable. You're on autopilot, bro. It's one of the most insane things. It's the most insane thing of my life. And I mean, the fact that we're talking about it is how I know that it's real, bro. Other than that, I'm still thinking someone's gonna pull out the camera, you know, the Ashton Kutcher camera, and say you're being punked. So,
you know, listening like when they had Tom Amis mic'd up when Serengeti Empress won, and I think at one point he says that his wife said, you know, they're going too fast, and he said not for this filly. And I thought about that moment when listening to you watch the race, because it was almost, and we do this to ourselves, like when you have a bet, when you bet a horse, when you're rooting for a horse, whatever it might be, in the middle of the race, you try to convince yourself that the circumstances are okay, that they're like, it's what's happening is okay, because, you know, Mage was a little bit further back than I think that visually on paper you would think he would have. When you open your eyes and you see where Mage is sitting in the race, you didn't see him there, but then you looked at the fractions and I saw you like reassuring your family that they're going fast. They're flying in front of us.
Yeah. I mean, I love to play the horses. I love to read PPs. You're a horse player. We read PPs. And you know that going for a mile and a quarter, when you're going 22:45, 110, you have to be an absolute machine to keep rolling. So, and I know that the horse, the way that Gustavo has been training the horse, it was going to be the second half of the race that the horse has been taught to start picking it up, you know, because we do know that he's got a like, you know, I have to speak in a from like a third person's point of view, because I don't want to sound like, I want to talk about the horse like an analyst, not like as a owner or agent, which is, it's been a long time since there's been a dirt horse with a turn of foot that can kick on from the back of the pack. I mean, it's been countless years that we see horses, and I'm not talking about like horses that we've been seeing, like the way that the American racing is gravitating is go as front, go to lead and go hit to the front and go as far and as fast as you can for as long as you can. And this horse has like it's like a turf horse turn of foot, which is like you can relax and sit, and when you ask him, he's gonna give you, I mean, he's gonna bring it, like he's gonna fly home. He did it in the Florida Derby, and he did it here. It's just something that we've learned about him. So I knew that the way that Gustavo's been training him the last 8 weeks has been to settle, because the horse has shown that he's got the capacity to do that. And when called upon, he needed a jockey that was in a ride that was going to be more skill, hands and heels, than necessarily the physicality to carry them home. And when they win those fractions, and he started picking it up how he's been taught, by the time they got to the 3/8 pole, he started, you know, he went from 16th to ranged up 5th in like a couple strides. He's like a little Porsche. I mean, his 0 to 60 is 1.2. And then I lost it because they turned from home and now they come into view, and you know they're ranging up, and anyone, horse player, horse owner, fan, all you want is that route. So the minute I saw him ranging up, I turned to someone who's either trying to cash a trophy or trying to cash a bet. And we've all rooted, and you've seen me root bets for the good and for the bad. And, you know, this time it all worked out. So you got to see a fun one there, dude.
No, you're right, man. That's one thing is he did his move was so quick. Like it was like he wasn't there and then he was there. And it was it is a unique thing now because I think a lot of good horses that are trained by the best trainers in the world, especially in these dirt races, and Todd and Brad Cox and Baffert. They're you're right. They're four types that just kind of keep going, and it feels like I don't know. I mean, I'm probably going too far back, but it feels like street sense types where they were these elite horses that come from off of it, and it is a wonder because the paces are honest in these big races nowadays, the majority of the time, because of the what you're talking about. What were you worried about leading into the race? Were you confident? Were you kind of conceding that the victory was that we're here? What were your thoughts the day of leading up to the race?
A lot of our friends, Bo Bramagen, Johnny Greathouse, Jay Goodwin, guys that we all know real well, man. That they're in the business and stuff. Like I'd chat with them during the week. I'd see them, and everybody was like, "Yo, why are you so calm? Like you should be, you should be, crapping your pants. Like, can you believe it?" And uh, for me, I do realize I'm in the race, and that's an amazing accomplishment. Out of that whole full crop, you got 20. You made it to that, to that super. I was super appreciative and very, like, from like we started the show. I was like, yo, for my grandpa, we did it, man. Like what you wanted, bro, we did it. But um, I've been using the LeBron that app, the Calm app, which has a lot of like mental training from LeBron and some other athletes that are on there, and a lot of it, the kind of short and curly is like live in the moment, live in the present, like in the now. Don't worry about scenarios that are out of your control, and don't worry about what's happened in the past because that's over. So living in the present, every day I'd see the horse uh, doing things that showed his maturity, man. You have a son, and you see Austin going through maturity in his own right. And I'm sure there are moments that catch you, and you're like, man, my kid's growing up, whether it's a conversation that he might have, or an athletic thing that he might do, or something that he might do in school that you might do a double take. Same thing goes with these horses, bro. They mature quicker, obviously, than we do as people, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, whatever, and through their 3-year-old year. And I saw these things because I hang around the barn a lot. I was here for a good 9 days, and at a Gulfstream, he trains home. And my job full time is horse racing. So the barn and Gulfstream, or wherever we are, the racing is my office. So I get to be there and be that fly on the wall, seeing things. And the horses was just doing everything like better than he did previously. And he enjoyed that surface more than he enjoyed the Gulfstream surface. He did personally. And the humidity in Florida was getting to be tough on him, and he loved this cool weather here. So like you could see everything about him, his energy levels. It's like if you have a great meal and you pass out and you sleep like a lion and you wake up and your eyes are clear and you feel like a beast, like we have an efficient day. But if we have like a terrible flight and we sleep like shit and you haven't eaten and you're cranky and you're annoyed, you might perform like shit. But he's had such a flawless time at Churchill. I was like, man, he is like, wow. And, I'm seeing my kid change before my eyes. So I knew that look, Craig Bernigal always tells me, and he's slapped me on the hand several times and says, his quote about engaging into arguments with people that have pseudonyms, fake monikers, and fake profile photos.
Don't smarten up a dummy.
Don't smarten up a dummy. And I've avoided getting into those exchanges, but I read because I'm very observant, and we're all on social media quite a bit. And at the same time, brother, everybody's allowed to give their opinions. Everyone. It's what we're here for. You're a fan, you're a horse player, you're a whatever. You want to give you're an expert, you have your podcast, you have your blog, you have your page, you have your YouTube thing. Cool, bro. Go on and say whatever you want to say, because all you're doing is just showing the world what your level of expertise is, and you're giving your opinion, and you're standing by it. Fantastic. No problem. I'm not here to disagree with you. It got me once or twice when someone would insult my horse, because there's the personal connection. It's like, wait a minute, you're calling my kid a bad word or a derogatory fashion, and that kind of annoyed me. But again, the Craig Bernick line. So I just stayed quiet. But I respect Forte. He leading up to the Kentucky Derby, he was the favorite and the justified favorite, and he has not done anything wrong. Like in sports, if you win in game 7 4-3 and you hit the winning jumper, are you going to degrade the runner-up for losing? Are you going to degrade the winner, that he didn't sweep the series? No, he won the trophy. It's over. Like, you're not thinking, that it was a razor thin decision, that they went to the 7th game and it was a game-winning jumper, and he got lucky to win. No, man, like, he won, period. That's it. Soccer, they went into overtime, and the golden goal won the game, and you degrade the winner that he only won 1-0. I do not. That I leave that in the hands of figure makers and people who want to sell their opinions and make that living. If that's what you want to do, brother, go for it. I myself, a win is a win. Forte did what he had to do, but we lost to him by 6 3/4 lengths. And 4 weeks later, he beat me by arguably 3/4 of a length. So I made up 6 lengths on him in 1 month. What I'm getting at, and this has been a hot take topic, but these gallop outs, correct. You don't get a paycheck for a gallop out. You don't cash a bet for a gallop out. But what you get is a clue. On our gallop out of the Florida Derby, it's not that Forte broke off and galloped out 20 in front, or that we switched back to our wrong lead and fell back by 100 lengths. And there was a huge disparity. On the contrary, I know that Louis, when he felt Forte coming up on him, started hollering at the horse, and the horse tried to respond. But unfortunately, in the laws of physics and momentum, Forte was already on top. The race was over, and Forte won fair and square. But what you know is that the horse, it was too late, but he re-engaged and he tried. And if you look at the gallop out, he's galloping out with Forte, and he's pulling his head like wanting to keep going. So I knew that fitness-wise, the 10 furlongs were within our scope. B, we discovered the new dimension on the horse, not just in practice, but now on game day, we saw the new dimension on the horse. And what it gave me was confidence in knowing that if we made up 6 lengths on the favorite in 4 weeks, that in another 5 weeks, if everything stayed according to plan, and we know things can change on a dime, that he was going to give us another really, really good effort. And if that good effort put us in the stratosphere of the favorite of the race, we'd be in the fight, which is all you can ask for in horse racing, bro. That you're in the game, you're there, you're in that, you're punching from the 8th pole home or a quarter pole home, you're down the stretch they come, and here we go, and you can give that route. That's all you can ask for. And that's why I was like cool and calm, because everything was on the preparation point of view, everything was going right. And I knew what I knew about my horse. So regardless of what people were saying, regardless of what they thought of his workouts, which they don't know, people don't know, It was just keep on rolling. So I was just enjoying the moment, man, enjoying my mom being there, my brother being there, my uncles and aunts being there, enjoying my friends that were there, the laughing, the joking, the BSing that we all do when we see each other at the track and mess around, bet, talk smack. It was be present. And even when the ABR guys were filming me, getting teased by friends of mine that were there, and it didn't make the cut of the film, but getting teased, and just it was so loose because I was like, we were here, horse is doing good. I'm surrounded by friends and family. What more could I ask for? And I know that my horse is doing really well, so we're not going to get embarrassed. We're going to be in the mix. I thought before the race, if you would have put me on, if I was a analyst, my analyzation was, all right, give Tapit Trice his due, give Angel of Empire his due, give Forte his due, and the San Diego Derby winner, Practical Move, give him his due. They won the Big Four. They won the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, and the Fiesta Bowl. All good. But when it came to the runner-ups of all the Big Four, I'm like, we're fifth. As of the day after that race, those prep races, me. So I'm like, as a horse player, you don't get paid dick for finishing fifth. And I get it. But as a horseman, if we were to run fifth in the Kentucky Derby, I'm a good fifth. I'm like, wow, that's a really awesome, respectable race. We did the right thing. Or if we want to run a good fourth. So Practical Move obviously scratched and Forte scratched. I'm like, we are arguably, in my opinion, one of the top three horses in this race. So when you have the personal factors there, the private factors there, how am I just going to be enjoying the love that's around me and the circumstances that were presenting themselves?
And you talk about being present, and the one thing that I kept thinking about after I saw the race, and I'll tell you my story, what happened with me. I watched it in the airport, so that's a whole other story. But I just kept I was laughing, like, I cannot believe Ramiro just won the Derby. And then I thought, oh, this is going to be hilarious watching Ramiro hold court all the way through all of the different scenarios that are going to come after the race, right? Like you got to get across the track into the infield, then you're in the winner's circle, and you got the trophy and the pictures, and then you're the interviews, and then you're going to the champagne room, and then the press conference, and then dinner that night, and all that. Like, just give us the quick overview as someone who has likely, because of your involvement in the game, has been present for so many other people's experience of that huge life-changing score of a lifetime moment. What was it like being in that moment, in the aftermath?
It was awesome to feel the love, bro. It's friendships and our relationships is the foundation of my being, man, because I genuinely love to show love, and I'm genuinely happy for people's success. I'll never forget the happiness when Cigar Street won the skip away for Jake at Gulfstream Park. I can't remember how many years ago. It feels like if it was 100 years ago. Seeing him root his horse, big ass Jake's 8 feet tall, fucking shaking and baking and twisting his body and fist pumping this horse home, and how we were all in that winner's circle. Go look up the Cigar Street winner's circle. It's 3,000 people in there, and it's bananas. When Bo Daddy Brahmagen beat the monster at that moment of newspaper of record in the Edgewood with Concrete Rose, and we went bananas. We were slapping Bo on the head with the racing form, like 10 people, like if he was the horse. It was fucking crazy. We went bananas for Bo that day. When you share those kind of moments with your friends, Dude, I've rooted scores with Chris Pipito that him and I are in on a pick 4 or pick 5, and we're bringing home a horse for us to cash. Or I remember like an Oaks trifecta Pharaoh's year that paid pretty decent that Chris and I hit. A double of Animal Kingdom into oh my God, I'm gonna kill myself for not knowing this filly. It was AK. It was something. It was that long shot filly. She went like the Devonna Dale into Animal Kingdom, and me and Pepito rooted that thing home like maniacs, like absolute maniacs. And when Chris won, with Angel, the grade 1 at Keeneland, and dude, we can give examples of this. Giving that love to your boys, that you're going bananas. It's amazing because you're an extension of their crew and you're fit. Bro, remember when you hit Dom and Richard hit that pick 6 at Breeders' Cup? It was like rock stars, dude. It was every bananas. So like, and finally, Deuce. Remember when Deuce won with Tepin at Royal Ascot, bro? Like, so you remember those things, and then you win the race. I'm with my family. I come down. I see Nick Luck like sort of approaching me with the with this NBC, with the mic and the camera, and all of a sudden, Jay Goodwin, Johnny Greathouse, Bo Bromagin, and Black Rob Walton. I don't even know how those guys even made it down before me. They're on the dirt, between the turf and the dirt course, and they have bum rushed me like rugby players. Like if I was getting mugged on the street, and it was just a melee that we must have knocked Nick Luck back 10 feet against the railing. He was in shock, like what is going on here? And it was a mosh pit of just getting slapped and kicked and punched and hugged and kissed and grabbed. Bro, that feeling, dude, of having that love from your friends, and then you cross over to the grass and there's even more friends there, and everybody's kissing and whooping, hollering, you're sweating, your clothes, your suits were gone nuts. And bro, how do you express that, man? That's priceless. That's the Visa commercial stuff, man. It's priceless to get that reciprocated back to you. That to me was like my explosion of emotion, that I had, man. That was the best, man. That was the best.
Well, now it's gonna be pretty interesting. A little behind the scenes, sir. I'm sure people who have read and heard, but you got a hectic couple of weeks here now because there's a lot going on. First of all, it's coming up on Timonium, which is relevant for a couple of reasons. One, because you work with Fasig. Two, because this is where you bought Mage last year. So I'd assume you'll be busy handling that. And then, oh, by the way, you have a horse that's still alive in the Triple Crown. What the hell are you going to do for the next 2.5 weeks?
That's a great question, man. I don't think there's anything that can prepare you for that. It started with the winner circle photo, that intensity of a winner circle photo, the trophy presentation, and you're meeting the governor. And then from there, JK, I had these 2 mountain of sized state troopers, bro. These guys were like the biggest white guys I've ever seen in my life. They were like 2 super juiced up Jake Ballases, And they grab you by the arm and they're taking you like through the crowd, and like, you got cameras being stuck in your face and you're sweating. I'm like, my phone died I remember when Mage was coming at me in the winter circle. I was like, oh my God, I got to film this walk-in. And I take out my phone has no battery. It was like I was instantly back in 1997 where cell phones didn't exist. And I lost my mom, lost my family, lost all my friends. The cops are taking me to the press conference. Cameras are being stuck in my face as I'm trying to get there. People screaming everywhere. It starts pouring rain. You get to the press conference room. And then you're being asked tons of questions from all types of reporters of all kinds of variations. And then once that happens, I walked out of there, and it's like the only lifeline that I had was Black Rob Walton. Rob Walton. He was like, he was the only that had a phone like on 3% battery, and at least with that we were able to guide ourselves to the barn, to we were able to find where Gustavo was going, and at the very least have have an idea of where to go. But I lost my family. They went back to Lexington, and then all of a sudden, like, when I finally was able to charge my phone, like, I've never had this in my life, because I never had a child being born. I've never been married. And there was no cell phones when I graduated college. So I've never had a life experience that people could congratulate me or whatever. Some, that people do that. I never had a reason that people needed to reach out to me in that fashion. And man, classmates that I haven't seen in forever, ex-nightlife coworkers and old friends from my nightlife days, classmates from Miami, like the mayor of Coral Gables and the mayor of Miami, who are my boys from high school and college, hitting me up, sending me FaceTimes. My best friends that now are married with children, or you unfortunately can't stay in touch with them as often as you did. Family members from all over the planet, like 2,000 between Twitter DMs, Instagram DMs, and posts and messages, Facebook, which and then your DMs of your cell phone. Dude, I like 2,000 messages, and it took me until yesterday to get back to every single one. I tried. I got back. I did do it. I got back to every single person. Now comes the next wave of communication, which is all these people amazingly asking to want to hear either my story or my point of view, or get to know me more, or ask questions. And it's wild because I'm like, how'd you even get my number? How'd you even know to get a hold of me? It's a lot to take in, because some people you don't even know who they represent, or what the agenda is, or what's the plan here. You're being asked for your time, and it's quite interesting. And then on the business front, a lot of scenarios are being discussed with the horse and his post-racing future. So a lot of things. And then on top of that, correct, the Bree show's coming up. Mother's Day is on Sunday. The Bree show starts on Tuesday, and it's a full week. So then it's a full slate of the day. And you're one person, and you're being pushed and pulled in a lot of ways, man. So it's very unique. I'm just trying to organize things mentally to see where the priorities are, and just try to grasp it, man. But it's bananas. Luckily, Gustavo, well, for starters, the horse came out of the race awesome. So that being the first order of business, the horse is in great shape. The horse feels good. He was bright-eyed and feeling good. So we're like, all right, cool. That's like a big, sigh of relief. Everything's great there. And then I know that Gustavo and Junior, I don't know if people know this, Gustavo won 2 Triple Crowns in South America. And while the class of horse is different, the timing and the spacing of the races and things like that are familiar. So, and he's won and participated in big races here. So it's not like this is out of his element in any way. So I know that from a horseman perspective, the horse is in the right hands for this moment. So I don't have to worry myself about that. There's no micromanaging on my end. So at least that, which is the most important of anything, is already handled. Now it's just organizing my time. How can I share it, which I'm very happy to do, because it's a special thing that 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 happened not only selfishly, but it's really cool, man, that for a moment, we discussed about growing our game, how much we love our game, and how we would love for our game to become like a football, basketball, baseball, type of thing. And it's a very long road for it to get to that level. But if there's gonna be one time a year that the spotlight is shown on it, I think as a person who loves this, and anyone who loves this as much as we do, it's your responsibility as a steward of that to give your time to promote and shine a spotlight, not just on me and your accomplishments and say, hey, I bought a Derby winner, I'm the man, and let me get your business, but show the beauty that does come from this game, show the joy that this game does bring out, because it genuinely does, and put for that brief moment that we do get it, do our best to you know to make us shine as best as possible, man. So I do want to get organize that, and then my responsibility to my personal job, which is make sure that everything goes smooth at the sale, and then to the opportunities that have come up over the last year and from the race, that if I am going to purchase some horses, that I'll be able to thoroughly be able to scout and analyze and be able to purchase some nice horses there when the sale comes. So it's a lot, man. It's a lot, but I'm doing my best to try to be as organized as possible.
Ramiro, let's go back a little bit. I got some South Florida stuff. So, unfortunately, I we're opposites a little bit, where I found the game a little bit later in life, and not too late. I mean, I was, 15, 16, 17 when I started to get into it, but there's one thing that I always hear about. I never got to experience, and I'd love to talk to someone who knows how I racetrack. How I racetrack. We racetrack very similarly. Tell me about Hialeah. I never got to hang out at Hialeah. I know you were a little bit younger when you were there, but tell me a little bit about Hialeah, what it means to you.
So in Florida, up until 1988, you could not be under 18 and go to the races. You were not allowed to attend the races. Kids were not allowed to attend the races. New York, yes, but not Florida tracks. So when I was 5, no, more, 5, 6, 7, 8. When I was between 7 and 8 years old, we moved to Florida, to Miami, and naturally, my parents obviously wanted to attend the races. So Hialeah, obviously I wasn't old enough to understand like the geography of how far that was from my home, but we knew that was the racetrack. When you rolled into Hialeah, and it's crazy because this day and age, it would never happen. Like the layouts of the tracks, how they are, and with security, and just the heightened sense of how people are these days, it would never happen. But at Hialeah, you could literally drive your car and roll up on you haven't even entered, you go into the track, you haven't gone into the Grand Center clubhouse. Obviously, the track is outside of that parameters, but Hialeah was a private property, with 20-foot walls, or however many feet that is, that were like a compound. So you would drive into those walled off giant compound, and you can roll your car right up onto the rail, like literally on the fence, without needing a horseman's license or anything. You could just literally drive your car and park it, bam, on the turn. We had a red Volvo. So I would sit on the hood of the red Volvo and I would watch the races. And then my parents would just walk into the track, make their bets and take turns and come back and watch the races from there, bro. So you would see the flight of the flamingos, you'd see the races, and that was my iPad, right? Like now parents, hey, the kids, being a pain, or, the kids too loud, give them the iPad and let them watch the iPad. Right? Well, they would sit me on the hood and watch the races. So that was my thing. Watch the Flight of the Flamingos, watch the races at Hialeah. And then when I was 10, they allowed us in. And it was Gulfstream Park. The first day that children were allowed to come in, I was 10 years old. And after the first race, the announcer invited all the children that were there that day to come down to take a winner's circle photo. And the old Gulfstream used to have a Hall of Fame foyer hallway where they had all the famous trophies and famous silks. And my picture as one of the kids was in that foyer as like the first group of kids that ever took a winner's circle photo that were allowed at the track, man. So when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I'd always see my photo in there. So you got a taste of the winner's circle as a young kid. And that special feeling never went away, man. And then Calder, another playground, had an amazing arcade, you know, like with the machines, Galaga, Street Fighter, NBA Jams, you know, what were some other great games that they, those were the big three that we played. You know, he's on fire, you fucking NBA, you know. So you could watch the races and then run around like crazy. And my parents would leave me alone. Like you could be, you know, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever. They were in the turf club or they were in the clubhouse, and it was your playground. So you know, we knew some of the tellers. They let you make bets. You learned to read the form. You could make bets, and then we go play in the arcade. So with other kids that were there. So you'd play NBA Jams, Galaga, Street Fighter, and then we'd watch races in between and make some bets. I mean, it's no different than what we're doing now. I never left fucking Neverland, bro. It's been Peter Pan world still. You know, it's like it sounds just about what we do now. And so those Florida tracks as a kid, I mean, you know, luckily I wasn't 12 smoking cigarettes, you know, thank God. But you'd see, like I can't even imagine, you know, like in this climate of 2023, if you look back at, wait a minute, this kid's 12 years old with a racing form in his hand, money in his pocket, making wagers, like, and playing arcade games all day. Like, how is this good? How is this normal? But it was just the way it was back then, man. So racing for me, you know, and I love sports in general. So I was always like a sports nut. Like, you know, you want to talk about NFL, NBA or whatever, we can talk about those sports and football just the same. But like when you're that young and that consumed by horse racing, it sounds wild because you'll have people my age who will talk to you about cartoons, G.I. Joe or, you know, whatever, you know, X-Men or Spider-Man or whatever. And for me, it was Angel Cordero. He was Spider-Man. Lafitte Binkai, George Velasquez, like Alidar's George Velasquez. And then when I was later on, like Johnny V came up and you're like, is that his son? You know, like a little thing because, you know, the last names. George Velasquez, Bill Shoemaker. Those were my superheroes. And then the horses were like the, you know, like Voltron. Like, you know, in Voltron, you had the little pilot and then they were lions. And then they became like the, you know, like when the Power Rangers became like that, they all joined forces, you know, Captain Planet or whatever. The horses were the superheroes. And my obsession was encouraged by my grandpa and my uncles because they take you to the track. So like, you know, I think in the ABR video, I was in such emotion. You know, they were like, what happened? I'm like, I said 92, but it was 93. I'm like, that's like Sea Hero 93. And I tell someone who's 44 that, and they might think you're full of shit because you were 12. Like, do you really? Was that really Sea Hero? And I'm like, brother, I know that race, and not because it was YouTube, because I saw it. You know, like when Spend the Buck started beating Chief's Crown, that broke my heart. When Holy Bull started beating the Hare, that broke my heart. When Fly So Free didn't go on at 3, that broke my heart. You know, when John Henry retired, that broke my heart. because you defended those horses like people defend the Yankees or the Knicks or the Heat or whatever your team is. You develop those allegiances, and then they win or they lose, and then you're riding those emotions as a kid, bro. So like Caveats, Belmont in '83, Swale, that yellow, that bright orange yellow, and on a black horse with pink bandages, and he wires him. You know, that's such a impressive thing as a kid because you're seeing this black, dark, strong horse with these bright orange silks, and he wires him. That those colors, that how it affects your senses as a child, it just remains burnt into you. You know, the pink and blue of Howard Keck, who's the owner of Ferdinand, and he was a beautiful chestnut with this little white blaze, and you see him going up the fence in '86. Ali Sheba almost falling down. That as a kid, you're like, oh my God. And then he regains his footing and beats Bet twice. Those are things like, you know, Seeking the Gold versus Wacoit versus Ali Sheba versus, you know, 49er, all these horses that were like in that era. You know, they took turns beating each other. It's like I'm an old person. I have like the mindset of a 60-year-old when it comes to the history of racing. So when I read comments with people that have gotten into the game later on and are quite successful, they're successful horse players or, you know, whatever, and they make statements, you know, I almost feel like an old man saying, these fucking kids, these mangy kids, you know. But it's the day and age that we're in, and to heck with it. Everybody's allowed to say whatever they want to say. But the way that I view racing is different. And like, I'm not afraid to take L's because it's impossible. You know, in this day and age, it's so flashy and fancy for many reasons to have an undefeated record or to, you know, never lose. But you know, it's really hard, man. I mean, you saw with Cigar, and he was like the ultimate super horse. Like, he was like, what? You know, it's unbelievable. But as of late, you see a little more of that because the game's managed a little different. But back then, it was like the boxers. Roberto Duran fought Sugar Ray fought Thomas Hearns fought Marvin Hagler. You know, the heavyweights, you had Ken Norton, you had Muhammad Ali, you had Joe Frazier, you had George Foreman. Everybody fought everybody. And even if you took L's, that's okay. It was okay to lose, bro, because you knew there was going to be another race for you to throw down against the next big horse. And I know we started off this question with what does it mean to you as a kid, and we've gone off topic a little bit because we're just flowing. But it is interesting when you compare the game and how the horses have changed. But in the end, it's what those old horses mean to me, and how they were campaigned and how they ran, not being afraid of the L, because it's not an L, it's a lesson. So when my horse took L's in the Fountain of Youth and people were screaming, why don't you go to a 1X allowance? I was like, because the lesson that he took in that race, and you use your horsemanship to see how the horse came out of it. If he would have come back in a negative way or not come back as strong or come back lesser, then you go to the 1X. But if he took that lesson and moved forward on that lesson, that was worth a 1X and a 2X victory by finishing fourth, by learning to get slammed sideways at the gate, by going 5 wide, by being forced to chase the pace, by being bumped by Forte on the turn, by being bumped by Rocket Can, and still fighting to the wire. That troubled fourth is more impressive than an easy canter in a 1X, or catching all the breaks and finishing second with overcoming no challenges. So
it makes a ton of sense.
So for me, I lean on my experience as to the old horses in how this horse was developing. And that's why there was that confidence that kept going from race to race. So like, and I don't want to talk about the future because you can only control the present, but you know, there's such a, in this day of the flash reaction to wins and losses, because either you didn't cash a bet or the horse let you down that day, bro, I've seen Michael Jordan get blown out. I've seen Michael Jordan get lit up for 50 and 60. But what happens that next game? He comes back ruthless and shuts that player out and crushes their soul. Unfortunately, I've seen all-stars and Hall of Famers in other sports have bad games, bad days, but they come back and win the next race or, win their next game. So in horse racing, not just necessarily Mage or any horse under my portfolio or any horse in general, like if you take an L, he's not a rat, he's not a pig, he's not terrible, he's not the disappointment, he's not a fraud, he's not a phony. It's just you had a bad day. Or if you string together some big races and you're in peak form and you crush it, man, then you're continuing to prove your greatness. But you have to wait for like the whole body of work before you start anointing or tearing down horses, because you have, unlike our next at bat, our next game in the series, unfortunately, is not the next day. You got to wait 3 weeks or a month or 5 weeks or whatever. And that leaves so much time on the table for you to like criticize or evaluate or rip to judgment. These days, you don't give the horses enough mulligans to develop a body of a resume to make your judgment on what kind of horse he is. We have to learn to appreciate on a race by race basis other factors than simply, he didn't live up to your standards, or, because you lost a wager, he let you down. There's a guy that loved Mage prior to the Florida Derby. He has a blog or whatever, and for being prudent and being respectful, there's no need to bring it up. Like, he loved Mage. He chatted about Mage. He was touting Mage. He's like, I'm going to put my whole 401k college fund for the kids. And the horse lost. He ran second. He was fucking furious. This was the race to cash. He let me down. I'm off of him. It's over. And then the next race he wins at, what was it, 18-1 is what the Derby he went off at or something? 15-1, 18-1. So it's like, you have to give, our horses this day and age are on a tight ass leash. And, fortunately for me, since I have the experience that I was blessed to have from childhood, starting at Florida tracks and then New York tracks, and being around, seeing how these OG horses were campaigned and how they ran, when you become an owner / racing manager, I think a little differently, and that alleviates pressure on the horse, alleviates pressure on my partners, and you just let things come organically, and you let the trainer do his job, and you just make sure he's in the right space and in the right point of view, and go for the next dance, man. But yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Ramiro, when you talk about, listening to you talk about it, like the childhood stuff is like, it's wild, because like I didn't really get to have that experience, right? Like I kind of had it as I got older. I mean, I became that fan of the game and lover of the horse, and when I was 16, 17, 18, when I started to kind of get involved. But there's always one thing, we never actually talked about it, but you went to the University of Miami, so you had racetracks near you. I went to Texas, and the closest thing that we had was Maynard Downs, which was like 30 minutes, but it was like a quarter horse track that you wouldn't, it had $2 Dos Equis, which was great. But outside of that, and then we had Retama Park, that was an hour south. That doesn't count, really. No offense to my friends at Retama Park. What was it like for you in college as a lover of the game? I mean, how often did you go to Gulfstream and Calder when you were at Miami?
All the time. I mean, it was just like, it was what we, it was the great thing to do. And when I would try to take look, we do this with especially with college football, because the schedule comes out and it's like, oh wow, we have these 3 away games we can go to, maybe 1 away game we can go to. So you know where spring break was, you knew your summer schedule, you knew your, when you might hit up certain races like the Breeders' Cups, the Belmont Super Saturdays, you know, the winter meet at Gulfstream in those years, like let's say 92 to 2000, those 8 years, which is my high school and college years. Those championship meets had amazing barns that would come down from New York. There was no Oaklawn at this capacity that it is now. You know, you had Gulfstream was the winter place to be for all those barns that maybe don't come down how they once did. So the quality of racing those years, you went there as much as you could. You know what I mean? It was a regular. It was like I said, much hasn't changed between then and now. Like it was your hangout. So you got to see a lot of racing, a lot of racing, and much like children who are around parents who speak multiple languages will absorb the ability to speak 3, 4, 5, 6 languages because they're learning it. When you're that young, your brain just absorbs it as a sponge. And then imagine now we're here listening to CDs and DVDs and whatever, trying to learn, Rosetta Stone, a new language, and you're in your car like a dummy, repeating lines over and over again in this language that you're trying to learn, and it's very difficult. But yet, when you're young, for some reason, I'm not a scientist or a doctor here, but you're so young, you learn things like a sponge, like it's almost second nature. Like how I learned Spanish. Like I never studied Spanish in school. It took me until I was like 16 before I ever went to South America once. But my Spanish is flawless. Like if people ask me where you from, I'm from my possible because you talk, and I'm like, well, it's because I learned Spanish when I was a child. My point is, being around so many horses since I was a kid, like I was like super up close to like Hansel and Fly So Free and Corporate Report because I was hot walking at Saratoga those years and they were like right there. Collar ID, West by West. I was trained by Rusty. Um, Phone Trick, Meadow Star, Turn Back the Alarm. Uh, just trying to, it's just a rush on your mind, but like seeing all these famous horses, all that stuff and being told by trainers. My grandpa worked for like Lucian Lauren and then later for Roger Lauren and Sylvester Beach, which is the father of John Beach, who trained Alidar. And being as a little kid, meeting some of these amazing people and hearing little things about horses or seeing little things and being told that's a lead change and look how that horse is striding out, all that stuff stays in your brain as a child. It's ingrained, man. So these days when I go look at horses, my mind looks at them a little differently because I've been around it so much as a child. There is an innateness that wasn't necessarily learned by working for this farm or this interning with this company or this agency or whatever. There's a rawness, but there's an ability there that comes from the plant being watered since it was a seed, bro. Which at the same time, those who don't come from it, it is fantastic to see when they don't come from it and they jump into it, and whether they're bloodstock agents or creators of racing partnerships or horse players in your case that got on it late and have success, you tip your cap. You're like, wow, man, you came from out of it and you've done well in it. Mazel to you. But for someone like myself who's been around it from the day I could crawl, there's a naturalness to it that I feel comfortable in that arena the challenge is for anybody, regardless, is the opportunity, right? Like if you don't have capital to play the horses, no matter what you feel mentally, you got to now use whatever money you have to hit your exotics or wagers or whatever, to then increase your bankroll, to then be able to play at a higher level as a horse player, as a bloodstock agent, or as an aspire creating or racing partnerships. If you don't have the relationships with people with capital, if you don't have the capital, you're not going to be going to the sales and buying high profile horses and making, money on commission as an agent that way, or whatever. You have to go with the money you're given, or being able to scrounge up and win. And that's how I started winning races at Finger Lakes, and buying $3,000 horses, $4,000 horses, $5,000 horses, and just putting them where they belong, and claiming 4,000 and claiming 3,500 and winning. But wins add up, you know what I mean? And those wins are educations. So cutting my teeth as an owner at winning races at Thistle and Tampa and Finger Lakes, and then at Gulfstream, and then with Florida Breds, and then Florida Bred Stakes, and then having horses that I bought, win open company stakes, and then being able to say, well, if I pinhook, I can flip it and make money, which will increase my bankroll. And if I truly believe that what I'm buying has some talent, then it's going to be proven on the racetrack. And it was like, I found them first at one point. So when Structor made us a lot of money on the pinhook, $1.60 to $8.50, then won the Breeders' Cup, was a validation that, I think I could do this. And I got a little bread. And then when he retired, to be lucky to be given the opportunity to sell him as a stallion, and I sold him to Japan, which creates another door of opportunities. So it's amazing how that water that was planted on a seed for me has taken me on my personal journey. And it just shows how magical these horses are, and what they can give to you, change your life chapter by chapter as you get older. And for me at this moment, at 44, culminating in a Derby victory, it's unbelievable.
Ramiro, for me, there's a moment of inspiration that happened in my life, and it's funny, like it kind of happened in a place that I think is, you had some similar inspiration. But I came to Miami for spring break when I was at Texas with one of my friends I went to high school with, and one of our buddies had like moved to South Florida and was like, bartending, and he kind of ended up in the scene a little bit, and he was bartending at this club, which I'm sure you knew about, called Mint. Do you remember
Wow.
Mint?
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah, so he was bartending at Mint, and he was kind of a dork in high school, and but he went down there, and he's like the coolest guy there. Like all these people, and Jeremy Shockey was high-fiving him, and like all these people are hanging out with him, and I remember we got on the plane and we left, and I said, if he can do that here, surely we can do something in Austin. And then I started like promoting these little nights in Austin, and just it was just this wild inspiration that I got from the nightlife scene in Miami. You spent some time in the nightlife scene. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, man. I had my junior, which called junior tennis, which is from 10 to 18. My father, like my mother's side was horses, my father's side was tennis. So I played tennis quite competitively. I played in probably the biggest junior tennis tournament in the world, at Orange Bowl, and I faced a couple guys that ended up being pretty good professional tennis players, including Fernando Gonzalez. He was like a Olympic finalist, like a Grand Slam finalist, got up to like, I believe, top 5 in the world at one point, and he owned a Chilean Derby winner later on in his life. Was a guy that I played against in my junior years, and we're still buds to this day. When I discovered in college that you're not quite going to go on to be, it's not going to be a career, and you're not going to get to that next step. You were just like a 2-year-old grade 1 placed horse. You never go on. I was at the gym working out, and I met a guy who, flash forward all these years later, is probably one of the largest nightlife operators in the game, in the business. He's got venues all over the world: Vegas, New York, Australia, and I believe soon Miami's gonna open up some stuff up. And went to work for him, and at a place called Liquid, which was owned by a very prominent guy in the business. And my life just turned completely upside down. I went from someone who was an athlete, not exposed to the fast lane of fast friends, fast women, fast money, and a fast paced party environment, to going to work for like a Dwayne Lucas, you know, uh, big time promoter at the biggest, most popular venues in Miami, and started doing some really amazing events that were driven by high profile athletes and high profile celebrities, and a lot of money flying into town. It was the era of like Robert De Niro owning venues down there. Madonna had a venue, Prince had a venue, Sean Penn owned a nightclub down there. Um, people like Sting and Puffy and J Lo were regulars. Mark Anthony were regulars on the party scene. Um, Axl Rose. I mean, if I start thinking of like the celebrities that were at events that we threw, and you had everything. You had, finance guys, stockbrokers from New York flying in on their jets. You had, you know, uh, the beautiful models. You had Gianni Versace. You had, uh, obviously, then like gangsters, mafias, drug dealers. You had 9 to 5 workers. You had regular blue collar patrons. Everyone. It's a melting pot of people trying to come party. Some are in the VIP. Some are in table sections, somewhere on the dance floor, whatever. And my job was to manage those personalities, and bring them to the party and cater them at the events. And you learn how to deal with people from different backgrounds and different uh, social statuses, I guess. And worked in that industry, going from promoter, and even before that, a guy who passed out flyers, to promoting, to managing as a marketing director, to having like an entertainment company that put on nightclubs and music festivals and fashion shows and special events, openings of restaurants and lounges and things like this, to having a share as a sweat equity investor in a nightclub, and opening up some pretty big venues. So it was very cool to have been around that amazing explosion of the South Beach business, and met a lot of awesome people, and then randomly here and there having crossover interactions with them, with racing, especially with the advent of the Pegasus. Um, Funny enough, Snoop Dogg was someone that I knew from the nightlife industry, and he was booked to do the Call to the Post Riders Up for the Pegasus down at Gulfstream. And I'll never forget him showing up, and I was in his suite with him and Dennis Rodman, and we were just having ourselves a day in there, if you know what I mean. And I gave them the bricks and mortar City of Light double. And can you imagine when like Daz and Corrupt, his J roller, his hairdresser, his 2 managers, Dog himself, and then another 8 bodyguards and friends play the double, bro, and it comes through. And I was watching the race with them in the suite, bro. It was like an explosion in there, Everybody cashed. Everybody went bananas, and you had a little racing, a little racing times pop culture moment there, and it's, you always say this, how does that crossover happen again? Because back in the Bing Crosby days, it's what all those people did, and And it was one aspect of racing that is pretty cool. And the Pegasus, tries to, and the Preakness tries to touch up on that. But now we're going into another subject when it comes to marketing and all that.
How about Craig Burnick wanted me to ask you about on this topic about the time. No reason to go here. Were you, him, and Donato we're in London. We're in London. You go to a nice dinner, and then you said, "Hey guys, let's go to this club. I got this club I can get us in." And Craig and Donato said that you got in the club and you left them out in the rain.
Man, he brings this up all the time. He really tries to dunk on me with this one all the time. He had invited me to go out there to a horse sale. Craig has been the closest. I'm the oldest of three full brothers, and then I have some half sisters and some stepsisters, and I'm the oldest of everybody. And of my friends, I've always been like a very strong character, strong personality. So I've never, had a big brother figure, and Craig and I are actually the same grade, funny enough. But he's taken such an amazing role with me as a big brother, as a mentor, more than anything, as a mentor, as an amazing friend. Doing the Donnie Brasco, like, this is a friend of ours, this is a friend of mine, with me. And it's really helped me have relationships with people that I don't think I would ever been able to meet professionally, because I was nowhere near their sphere. But I was able to meet them as men, just as on a man-to-man friend level. And it's made my relationships with a lot of these guys that are very successful and prominent in their business to be even more genuine and more respectful, because the friendships didn't come from business. They came from personal first. And he invited me to go to London for this sale at Newmarket. And he's like, "You're going to meet a ton of people. It's very good for your brand. It's something you definitely need to do, to learn to see these kind of horses out here and to experience this." So I was like, "All right, cool. Let's ride out there." And I was like, "Well, look, I want to go to London. It's an amazing nightclub scene there. There's going to be a great party over there." And I knew a really big DJ who spun at this club. And man, the way that London's nightlife is, it's very much like old Manhattan clubs and old, like, those Euro clubs of Miami in like the really early 90s. It's still like that. Because like nowadays here, as long as you have your Amex Black Card, it doesn't matter if you're 10 guys at the door. It doesn't matter if you're 10 like ugly looking, dudes, you're getting into the venue. It doesn't matter that you didn't bring any girls. As long as you have the money, you're getting in. Back then, it was very selective to get in. And Europe still runs their offense a little more like that in the nightlife scene. Like, it's just, and look, I'm not here to talk about being inclusivity. Like, these days, it's almost, you have to give a disclaimer because you don't want to offend anybody. But, I'm just talking about the way it is in that industry, whether you agree with it or not. But it's very exclusive. They exclude a lot of people, and that leads to a lot of, people being upset. "I didn't get in, I didn't get out. What the world?" But in London, they run the things, it's like a tight ship out there. So my boy, who's the DJ, he was a high profile DJ over there, like, guy does things all over the world, man. He was like, "Yo, I'm spinning in London this day. I got you." So I was like, awesome. So he goes, "Just come, we'll hang in the DJ booth. There's going to be celebrities there. We'll party. We'll have ourselves a night." I'm like, beautiful. Craig hits me up and is like, "Yo, I want to go out there. How do I change to, because I know my iPad thing, my earphone's is gonna cache probably. So how do I change audio?" We'll see.
Yeah, well, when your iPads, when they die, it'll just go to, you could just switch it to speaker, but you can go, it'll go speaker. You can also just go like settings. There's a little thing on settings you can hit too.
Well, I'll just let it die out. So Craig goes to me, "Hey, let's go to have some drinks." I'm like, "All right, cool." I'm like, these guys.
Oh, I lost you. I lost you at these guys. But you're back now.
I'm like, these guys, they don't care about clubs, man. You know what I mean? They're here for the horses, and I'll see them tomorrow in Newmarket, whatever. Like, I'm gonna go out and so, but the thing is, we meet at this really fancy bar, like a really nice, like a bar, like oak, gold chandeliers, like really, looks like there's like, people there wearing like, leather bound books and like, really like February is like, it's a really fancy high class bar we're drinking. But then one round becomes 2 rounds, become 3 rounds, and everybody's loosening up and everybody's laughing. So now we've had like 3 or 4 and everybody's buzzing. And it's like, so what are you doing now? And I'm like, well, I'm going to this nightclub. And they're going, let's go. Like, shit, well, let's go. Why not? And when we get there, it's a rainy London night, and it starts raining. So now we're walking, man. We're walking blocks, but we're hammered. And we get to the club, and right away, JK, it's like if your horse breaks out of the gate and you check back to, like a speed horse checks back to last, the race is over. It's a 5/8 race, and you've been left. It's over because there's like a mob of people. I see the faces on the door people, and I'm like, this is not going to be good. 3 dudes, older dudes, going to the door of this club and I go, we're cooked, like we're not getting, in my mind, I'm like, oh, the embarrassment. And of all people, it's like Craig Bernick, who personally is fantastic and professionally super successful. And you got like the #1 bloodstock agent in the game, and I'm about to just absolutely sell him down the river, Like the Titanic ship is sinking, and I'm getting on the lifeboat. I know the ship is going to go. I'm going down, but this captain isn't staying on boat, and I'm reading the room, and they're standing next to me like, "Hey, so where's your guy?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is just going to be terrible." So my buddy comes out, the DJ comes out, because I texted them, we're out there, and he looks, and I'm like, "Hey, it's me and my 2 guy friends." And he looks over my shoulder and it was like, "Ramiro, hold on." And he turns to the door girl and says something. And I can just see, this. This is this is my world. We're cooked. And she's like, you could just basically, she says, "No fucking shot." So he turns to me and he goes, "Ramiro, I can't do anything. It's just you." And in the most terrible reflex, I was just like, "Okay." And he opens the rope. I go in, he closes it. I go, "Sorry, guys." How they didn't disown me at that moment as a friend, bro. I cooked them pretty good there, man. And they have not stopped hammering me. And hey, I went in there and I was in the DJ booth. They brought over like bottles of champagne. Rihanna was in the building. And what's that song? Pay me what you owe me.
Yeah.
Better have my money.
Yeah.
You better have my money. They were playing that song all night, bro. I had like the smoke gun. Doing the smoke gun champagne. I'm posting Instagram, and Craig is like, "You piece of..." And then the best thing was the next morning, there's a car service to go to Newmarket, and I show up fresh as a daisy, like, "Hey guys, are you ready to go to Newmarket?" And their face was like, we should make you walk to fucking Newmarket.
Oh my God.
Go walk to Newmarket, man. And that was funny, bro. It was a terrible sellout, but JK.
You gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. You know what I mean? Speaking of music, your Instagram stories, your music selection, top notch, very high quality stuff you got going there, man.
Well, we grew up in the Hype Williams era. We grew up in the music video era, right or wrong?
Yeah, for sure.
MTV, TRL, Hype Williams videos. So everybody posts on social media for different reasons. For myself, Twitter, I love it for the facts. I love the historical replays, historical data. I love race results, pedigree updates. I love the facts on there. Um, Instagram, I come from a family that used to carry around trunks like gypsies, trunks of photo albums and photos. So I'm a big picture taker, video taker. I love recording memories. For me, memories are the greatest things to look back on. And I loved MTV and Hype Williams and his music videos. So uh, I make my it used to be 15 seconds, and now I think Instagram gives you like a minute on the stories. So it's like you can create your own little music video. So as it's my own little inside joke to myself. I make those are my little shout outs to Hype Williams. I do. So when you say that, I hope you know that that's where that's coming from. I'm making my own music videos to that, including a Venice skate park video with "I like it like that." I like it like
that. That's so this is one of those stories that it's one of those stories, and this is reading the room and being aware. This is one of those stories I'm going to tell you right now. If you're listening, we'll do our best. It's probably not going to be as funny to you as it was to us on that day. So it's one of those moments where I'm not going to build it up and then drop the punchline and wait for everyone to laugh. I'm just going to tell the story, just to kind of to feel it out. So, and Ram, you jump in when you feel like it's necessary. So we're all hanging out. This is the Breeders' Cup. It's actually the Breeders' Cup that you talked about with Richard when we hit the big pick six. And they actually posted that picture like on Barstool Sports of how much we scored for or whatever. So, if you've never been to Breeders' Cup, or if you have been to Breeders' Cup, there's the breakfast marquee that Fazig usually puts on, where people show up in the morning and there's this delicious food and there's just all the who's who of racing, and you're just hanging out, and if you want to have some coffee, if you want to have a mimosa, and there's the celebrities, there's Owen Wilson, there's Bob Baffert, there's Chad Brown, there's Todd Pletcher, there's Dale Romans, there's all the people in racing. And you watch the horses train and you just hang out, and it opens at like 6, sometimes even earlier, and then it'll go till like 9:30, 10. It starts to slow down, and then it really kind of starts to slow down. And we're all just sitting around, and it's me, Ramiro, Sean Tugel. There was someone else with us. I'm going. Did Dom come with us? Was Dom with us? No, it wasn't Dom.
It wasn't Dom.
Anyway, so was maybe Liam.
Liam. It was Liam.
Liam
O'Rourke.
So we're hanging out, and and I didn't have anything to do that day. I was like, I got there early for something. So I had nothing to do for the rest of the day. Because normally I would say, go to hell. I'm not doing what Ramiro and Sean suggested to do. They're like, hey, it's 1 o'clock or it's noon or 11 or whatever it was. Let's drive to Venice Beach, which if you know anything about LA, that's an hour and 30-minute commitment to get to Venice Beach because of traffic. And we're in someone's rental car that's like not that nice. You know what I mean? It's small. It's like the windows aren't tinted. I'm getting car sick. We're all starving. It was a nightmare. So
I remember you complaining about you're like, what are you talking about? It's an hour and a half. Are you crazy?
So we get in the car, we get there, we get to Venice Beach, we go to this little like Italian restaurant and we eat. And you've been in the car locked up for that long, at least me, I kind of attack. So I'm drinking a first glass of whatever it was, goes down quick. We're eating pizza, then another. The next thing you know, I've tied one on pretty good. And we just said, okay, well, we're here now. We're at Venice Beach. So what do we do? Do we walk around? So we go walk around, and we end up at this skate park. And there's this grown man, like with his headphones on, sunglasses. He's dressed sort of like a hippie, and he's on a longboard in the skate park where like these kids are doing tricks, and he's just cruising around. And Ramiro and I made a guess of what song he was listening to. And we came up with that song, I Like It Like That, and that he was just cruising around there, hanging out. And obviously it wouldn't have been nearly as funny if we weren't as many drinks in as we were, but it was a highlight. So I don't see Ramiro now without starting with the song I Like It Like
That. Because what was amazing was you had you had like skater kids, you had um, young kids, and everyone's there are performing tricks. They're like they're being really aggressive. They're doing with their tricks. They're really, I mean, all these wannabe Tony Hawks. Everyone's doing like these aggressive tricks, and they're gunning. And there's that one guy with the old school headphones over his ears, and he's just gliding, just cruising. And we got that buzz flowing, so anything is silly. And remember that guy? We were like, how about that guy? What music is this? Because he was like, if he was on that skate park by himself in his mind. There was nobody else there but him, you know? And he was just gliding. And remember that, bro? What is he listening to? And you can just go, I like you.
And then we had to drive home in another hour and a half traffic, but it was a well worth it trip. I definitely. One more I wanted to get you with, Ram, before we get out of here. I know you got a bunch of stuff going on, and we'll catch you this summer up at Saratoga. But Dom Savita is one of our friends. He had a good one that he said, and I have a feeling that you'll tell the story well. He said, well, first of all, he gave you a great compliment about how much you helped him when his father passed, and just being a great friend for him. But at one point, you guys went up to Ocala and like met with one of his dad's friends, who apparently was a maniac.
Oh my God. That was insane that Dom even remembers that. And I actually even forgot about that until you just said so, man. I was dating a girl that knew Dom from childhood, and she told me, hey, you should meet my friend. He loves horse racing. Him and his father love horse racing. And anytime there's a little competitiveness in you when someone you don't know brings up something that you love, like horse racing, it's like, yeah, all right, this guy knows horse racing. Yeah, all right. And they introduced us, and we hit it off like on a phone mandate, and we were like, man, well, I'm going to Ocala to see this yearling that I had that was he's already a 2-year-old that had just gotten broken and was training. And Dom was like, oh, I'd love to go with you. So our first hangout as buddies was that trip. I drove up to Boca from Miami, jumped in Dom's car. First time I ever met Dom, he had some great Cuban cigars, and we have ridden all the way up to Ocala and saw the horse train or whatever. But in between there, we did meet with one of it. Just like it was the most randomest of things, because it felt like it's just someone, an eccentric person, completely out of what the completely out of the loop of like of who you're used to talking to, and they were just really eccentric. It felt like I was like in like a public junkyard. It was just the most odd thing. I don't know if Dom has an amazing story or can remember an amazing story of like at that particular time, but what struck me was just how weird this dude was, and how weird and eccentric it was, and he was just telling us a lot of old stories of his father, and it was just like it was also the first time I was hanging out with Dom. So did he remind you of anything that might have happened that day?
No, he didn't say what it was. He just said ask him about the crazy guy and how he left. What do you say? He said he's a nut job. He said we couldn't leave quick enough. And then he said not the time he tried to kill me at Jake's house.
So basically it's what it was. It was this weird ass guy that knew Dom's dad, and it was like, imagine he like an eagle on his shirt with like USA shorts and like a Harley bandana, and I'm like, how does this guy even know Dom's dad? And it's like one of those, like in Hannibal Lecter, like it puts the lotion on the skin. It was like the guy, like Bill the Butcher or whatever it is. Like I'm like, are we gonna get murdered here? Like, are we gonna be like kidnapped? Like this guy's so weird and just going off his rocker. And I was like, how did I find myself here? How do we get the hell out of here? It was a super awkward random moment. We just had to get the hell out of there.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, Ramiro, I told you I texted you the other night, and I just said I'm sitting here giggling that that you just won the Kentucky Derby. I know that I speak for all of us in our friend group and just the industry, and I know your colleagues at Phasig have to be extremely proud of you. And it's an unbelievable experience, a once in a lifetime experience. I know how I felt a couple of times betting on the Derby winner. I can only imagine what it was like to be a part of the team. So I just want to make sure that you know the most heartfelt congratulations.
No, thank you, man. It's super special, man. It's great to be able to share this with family and friends, and to be know that you're for as much love as you put out, you get it back, man. It feels pretty awesome. Just as much as the success of the race, it's the emotion and feeling that you're getting from your friends and family that you do love. It feels great, and it makes this experience even that much more special. So hopefully there's more amazing moments to come, and this won't be the last time we have one of these +1s, baby.
We'll be rooting for you at the 8th pole, in a couple of weeks in Maryland, so you can have that puncher's chance one more time. And
no doubt.
And if you get that one done, then we'll see you in 3 more weeks.
We'll see what happens. We'll take it one at a time, brother, for sure.
All right, man. Congratulations. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for the time.
All right, brother. Take care, my man. Peace.
Ram, I appreciate it. It's crazy. I started watching the Kentucky Derby pretty seriously in around 2004, 2005, and you see a bunch of people win these races, and jockeys and trainers and owners, and you see these winner circle pictures, and you see these interviews after the race are over, and the Street Senses, the Big Browns, the Animal Kingdoms, they all have another's, the Nyquists, the list goes on, the Always Dreamings. And there's some people, as I got involved in racing, that I'm like, oh, I know that person. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's Terry Findlay with West Point. Oh, that happens. But this was just a weird one for me because Ramiro's a friend. To see a friend win the Kentucky Derby, the biggest race in the world, despite the money, right? I understand there's the Saudi race. I understand there's the Breeders' Cup Classic. But let's be honest, the Kentucky Derby is the biggest race in the world. And Ramiro won it. It's pretty cool, and I'm glad that we got a chance to catch up. I want to thank our friends at Qatar Racing once again for their support. Congratulations on an unbelievable Derby weekend with 3 big winners at Churchill Downs, important horses that will go on to do a lot of fun stuff. Can't wait to see what Caravel does next. Can't wait to see what goes on with Ever So Mischievous. And then obviously the filly, You Almost Had Me. Excited to see what is next for her. I appreciate everyone tuning in. I hope the Derby went better for you financially than it did for me. No good. I couldn't get anything together, but it did go good for some people around me, so that works. I'm gonna run out of here quick. We had a pretty long episode, and there's lots of stuff to digest. Getting ready for the Preakness. We'll see what happens with Forte, with Mage, with First Mission, and it should be a wonderful renewal. Heads up, I think I'm going to get one in next week, and I'm going to try to record 2 next week because I'll be traveling to Italy for a very, very, very important day in my life, and so I'm going to probably be out of town for a while. But I'll try to get 2 recorded to keep you rolling through the Preakness and all of that. I appreciate everyone tuning in, and we'll talk soon.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk.